There's something poetic in the guitar chords associated with cokeweed. Add in Nina D's soft, playful, and sensual vocals, and you have a blissful background for a gray and gloomy day. A perfect match in my book. I'd like to welcome Nina D of Cokeweed. Hello, Nina.
Greetings, everyone out there. It's wonderful to be here today with you.
Wonderful to have you. Um, it's been a while since Cokeweed has been playing together, right? I remember getting the CD back at the radio station back in like 2015, and I just fell in love instantly with Mary Weaver back in 2015. How long has it been since you last performed? Was it in 2020?
Yeah, that's you're actually kind of on did a little good researching there. So yeah, the band has been defunct for a bit. As we were originally a quintet. Um the band was based in Bar Harbor, Maine first, and so and our years of like operation or while we were really heavy in formation was 2010 to 2015. In 2014, Mylan McAlevey, who is really the actual leader of the band and the songwriter, and myself moved to Boston. So actually that last tour, right before we moved, actually, we finished doing the recordings that would become Mary Weaver in our house in Bar Harbor. So that kind of gives you the timeline a little bit. And obviously that it needed to get mastered, and there was a little bit of time between that and when it was released. We did a little tour for that record afterwards in 2015, and had a few gigs to as the band maybe after that, but that was pretty much it. Coordinating all the schedules over state lines, it just kind of fell apart. But Mylan and I continued to kind of record a lot of demos at that time together. Um, but the other background story is that we were together in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, and that kind of started to fall apart as things do. And the dissolution of that relationship, I think, really was like the clarion bell of what ended or dissolved the band once and for all. But Mila and I, we are still friendly to this day, and we still
Good.
actually are collaborating. So in 2020, like February 1st, he and I played a gig billed as Cokeweed in Jamaica Plain here at a great record store called Deep Thoughts. If you're ever in Jamaica Plain, Boston, go check them out. But it was not like the full band. It was kind of like Cokeweed Unplugged, as Mylan was playing an acoustic, and of course I was singing. So that was fun, but it, pretty much like at that point we were kind of kicking around the idea of having this little jangly traveling band, this two-piece, and doing maybe a little tour, but then the world kind of went dark immediately after that.
That's our loss for sure.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked as kind of a duo.
Well,
There,
yeah,
there,
as you know, like we were very big on college radio and that kind of radio circuit. And so, but also, we were very well known as we were a very tight live band. And in the years that we had the full band, we played all over the place. and got, street cred basically.
Good.
And then it fed into having this radio success and critical success. But so yeah, it would have been fun to do that. And we already had like routes and tour kind of routes cemented for, just doing a little sleepy kind of back town New England kind of tour circuit with
Yeah.
that. But again, yeah, that just really fell apart with the pandemic.
That's our loss for sure. I want to touch on what you just mentioned about the radio success. There was a Facebook post that I really loved where you mentioned, have you ever self-released a record that went to hit the top 10 of a national college radio charts? Have you ever been in a foreign city and looked over to see a car full of people singing along? I can still barely believe this myself, but luckily my bandmates, the radio programmers and relations, and the fans were all there believing in me. Nina D. that can you kind of talk about that success you had and how you felt about it?
Well, just to kind of start out on my personal side of this. So I feel like now looking back, a lot of the interviews and things you're hearing from Mylan, and obviously that makes sense because he is the songwriter, and essentially he created the songs, he wrote the songs and the music. So yes, previously in any of our interviews, or any of the kind of material where you would hear about our outfit and the band, Mylan would be the correspondent, and that makes sense because he was the primary songwriter and the writer of the music. But on my personal end, I before Cokeweed, I had never been in a band. I was basically a self-taught singer. I grew up in Florida, and when I was really young, I actually wanted to be an athlete, and through like a series of to me at that time what I would have called a hormonal mishaps, I kind of like got my period way early, and so I realized like that the dream of athletics and doing that, I was not good at it. And like I was 10 years old, and that year for Christmas I got a handful of pop CDs and a Discman, and at that point I just became super obsessed with like pop music and R&B, specifically R&B. Like my mom also listened to all of this 90s R&B, like Tony Braxton
Oh
and
yeah.
Celine Dion and Sade, and
Oh,
that was she worked, she was a nurse and a single mother to my sister and I, my twin sister and I. So she would get home from work, she would have to pick us up from our daycare, and in the car it would be one of those cassette tapes, and then when we would get home at night, one of those cassette tapes on repeat, and she would just sing along to it like therapeutically. And so as a kid, I saw that and thought, okay, that's how normal people consume music, and that was just how I started to respond to music and singing along to the radio. I basically taught myself how to sing doing that.
I was
And
going to ask you about your influences and how you started off singing. You just gave it all to me right there.
So yeah, I mean, to this day, like I am actually pretty like a good vocal mimic. I'm very good and savvy at karaoke because of this.
Who do you think you're channeling the most when you're singing with Cokeweed?
So, my voice is kind of its own thing, but there are definitely now, as an older, as I kind of grew up, and developed my own taste, and it wasn't just, my mom's R&B. I mean, I still love those records. I still listen. I mean, like all the Sade music, that's always going to be like my background music. And I think like everyone should just be listening to that in the background at all times. Actually, though, I think I've been I've been influenced more by kind of male, these kind of very I wouldn't say macho, but definitely like more masculine male front singers, like Brian Ferry and Jim Morrison have been huge like influences on me. Of course, like Grace Slick, also, and while we were touring, for anyone who would go and see Cokeweed shows, of course, we would play what we would release on the records. But there was also a lot of, again, like I'm saying, we would demo, and there's so much material that was never released, and we would play that stuff. But we would also, there would be some covers in our arsenal that we would play. And so one of the early Great Society, which is an early band with Grace Slick as the lead, they do a cover of the Janettes song Sally Go Around the Roses. And it's great. And so that was one. So we would do a cover of that song, which is a cover. But I would basically just be channeling Grace Slick.
Do you give it your own twist though when you do something like that?
Well, obviously, like I'm not gonna try to be a carbon copy, but there's always the way that I my intonation and how and Mylan very early picked up on that. It was kind of an interesting life in Bar Harbor where we're going to get into what I do now, but I'm also a scientist. I'm also a research scientist.
I was going to ask you about your cool day job.
I worked there for 6 years. And so Cokeweed happened, kind of at the last 4 years of that tenure of mine. So it would be, and, we live in Bar Harbor, is this like idyllic seaside, New England, touristy kind of quaint town. My day to day would be like I'd be going in, and the work that I was doing at that time was like investigating kind of different things that lead to cancer, but also so I can say like I did in vivo work or something. I worked at this prestigious crazy lab in Bar Harbor. But that is the real story there is that I was doing that for 6 years. And I came there straight out of college. I went to Sarah Lawrence.
Oh, nice.
And
good college.
I kind of started there at the bottom, and I worked there for 6 years, and basically it was an unofficial PhD. I was doing that caliber of work. Which is why now I am at Harvard, and I have the title and position of someone who has the PhD as well as many, many years of postdoctoral experience.
I think it's really cool that, and probably really rare, that you've got the scientific side and you also have the artistic side. And usually it's in one or the other, right?
It's actually kind of well, it's to me, it's very important because as like a younger person, like me going through high school, like there's actually I grew up in Florida, so take this as you will for Florida public education. There was like an assignment that I was given, like do your A to Z on the things that define who you are. And if you look in my thing from when I was this snarky kind of like teen angst high school student in that book, I definitely in the S section, I say that I like to sing. I say that I like science. And, under that, I'm like, it says I would like to pursue a career in the sciences, however that takes place. Like at that point, I had no idea how that would actually come to fruition, how those things would fall into place. But it also said, I enjoy singing and I'd like to be in a band. I'd like to be a singer in a band. So, essentially what happened was I grew up to be the person that my high school self wanted to be. So to me, that is actually a great thing how that turned. Like I am proud. Like I fit into that high school vestigial Nina's plan. And I also feel like during those years, there's a lot of me feeling like, I was in Florida. I was in this place where I felt like I didn't belong, where I felt out of place all the time, where I felt
that's all teenagers though, right?
Like overlooked and it was just me kind of cursing the world under my breath that like, just wait until I get out there and like, just wait and see what I accomplish, like look out.
I melted when I first heard you sing, when I first listened to Mary Weaver. I think your vocal qualities are on par with Hope Sandoval of Mazzy Star and Beth Gibbons of Portishead. Combine that with the grungy and crunchy guitars of Milan and Caleb. I just love the sound.
I will say that our lineup, the original, like the founding lineup of our band, like again, we were super tight. It was very special. And of course at the time when that was going on, those people were like my real family. I was up in this kind of polar end of the country, kind of on this island. There's only one road that gets to it, like perfect zombie apocalypse place.
Yeah. And the beaches aren't quite the same as in Florida, huh?
Not quite. There is one really nice sand beach in Acadia National Park that is called Sand Beach, but other than that, pretty much all the beaches up there are pebble rocks. Quite an incredible place. And so that was like our backyard. And like I said, like the house that Mylan and I lived in, that was where we would practice. And lucky enough for us, like we didn't have neighbors that were that close by, and the ones that were there didn't mind, the noise that we would make. And so that was our kind of HQ for practicing, for demoing songs. And so it would be like, so yes, I have this interesting day job there where I worked at this prestigious mammalian genetics lab by day, doing meticulous record keeping and molecular biology and cell-based biology and cytogenetics, really like looking in deep into subnuclear space of cells by day. And then I'd come home and Mylan would have prepared the bones of 5 demos, and he would actually so this was on like 2 daisy chained 4-track Tascam tape machines. He would do the bones of the guitar tracks, of the bass, and maybe a very rudimentary kind of drum machine drum track. And he'd do a kind of little scrub vocal. For him, he would do it in his register, but he would have it so it would get sped up. So it would be then in my it would sound like Cartman from from South Park. And so I'd listen to these little rudimentary demos, and then I'd put my vocals on it. And then once that demo was done, that would get sent out to the other instrumentalists. And that's how we would then, they would listen to it, and then we'd all converge in at our practice. And so the instrumentalists might have their own flourishes to put on top of this like bare bones demo. And so, or it would be, we would be practicing or whatever it was, we were, or making the record in our little, Cape bungalow. It was this very bohemian lifestyle up there.
It sounds very cool.
It was very, I don't think a lot of people have that. Everyone wants to romanticize what being a musician or being an artist is. And like that was really the real, and again, like I said, like, while the band was really turning, especially while we were in Bar Harbor, I was really up there. And so my cokeweed family, those were the people I saw all the time. And then of course we'd go on tour, and we'd be like on the road together for weeks at a time. It's been interesting now in the aftermath of that, like that situation. That is not my life. I am not actively going out and performing, hardly ever, even like I'm not even really singing as much in my day-to-day, which is bizarre. But as the world changes, as we all see, we kind of have to adapt to the new way. But
I hope you find a way to get singing back into your life, because your work is amazing. Do you ever do like a local open mic night or something? Just sing to something?
Well, so, like I said, now it's like I'm just really love doing karaoke. Like I can just go up there and just smoke it. Like, and that's more so where I would do that. However, I will say that Mylan has released a solo record. He released a solo record this past year called Islands of Mylan. Islands of Mylans, actually. And he actually did that so people would get the mnemonic way of how to pronounce his name, because people will say, it's like a universal and Gaelic name or Eastern European name, but his version of it is the Irish pronunciation, which is Mylan. That like
Mylan, not Milan. Like I thought it was.
Yeah,
thought it was
not
Italian.
like Milan, Kundera. But yes, so he released that record, and on kind of like one of the prominent singles from it, called You Can Get It, I am singing backups in the choruses. So we are still collaborating, which is fantastic. And I'm still doing recording projects, which is very fun. And for Mylan and I at this point, like as I was describing our kind of demo, how we work together, it works like clockwork.
Good.
He knows exactly my voice and how to write for that, basically. So that record now, his solo record, it actually is a little bit more country western sounding.
There was a couple songs that you did when you were both doing the vocals on the songs. I think Jimmy was one of them.
Yes.
And it had that kind of a country twang to it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
so cokeweed and Mylan and myself, for that matter. It's not like we're just rock and roll heads or whatever. We are all influenced and love many different genres of music. I myself, I love classic country music. I mean, that is essentially, when we get back into the nitty gritty, that is American music at its core. And of course, I also want to point out at the heart of that is it is also African American music too, in a way.
Yeah.
Which leads us back to the R&B and all of that. But yes, the earlier Cokeweed records are more folksy sounding. And so it is true, we released 4 records in 5 years, and like the 5-year tenor of our group. But at the beginning, the first one that we released, so the first one we self-released and we just put it out, on the internet as a free download, just to get, our name out there. Of course, we were starting to book shows and gigging around to get again our like street cred, that we were a viable touring and gigging act. But yes, a lot of those songs are kind of a more folksier sounding, like Velvet Underground vibe.
Yeah, that's what I was getting for sure.
And then as you kind of work through the progression, they get each record that comes next is a little bit more polished, and it has a little bit of a more different sound. The second record we put out, which was called Nice Dreams, still has a lot of kind of folksy burners, but it starts to kind of go more into heavy rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third record, Back to Soft, I'm like, why am I blanking on this? That was really like the breakthrough. That was where like CMJ just exploded, like that record. So that record we self-released, which
Nice.
Again, this is all crazy to think about. We self-released that record. We did have, some radio PR people working with us to kind of get it out there. But yeah, like CMJ just, it was like, and now it's like, this is stuff that doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, I used to
I
use
have to
CMJ all the
asterisk
time.
all of this.
Yep.
None of these things exist anymore. However,
now I use algorithms to get my leads.
yeah. So, but yeah, when that record came out, it was, you would go to the CMJ webpage, and that was the first thing I was like, so that was like crazy for us to see, and all of this very good press coverage come through. But I mean, so that record, it sounds kind of like sludgy and 90s, like distorted guitar. And then of course, like with the girl singer. And yes, a lot of I would get the link, or the critical link, that my voice sounded like Hope Sandoval, which is, a huge compliment to me. That just, I love those records.
Yeah.
It goes without saying that, she's an incredible vocal. And that's like also like, of course, like, I love her whole just performing style. She's very shy, but like this tiny, silky brunette. And so for me, I'm like, okay, like, I wish I could be like an animated performer, or someone who's up there that's like dancing. But like for me, it's more like
Mick Jagger.
I'm up there and I'm kind of like, and like more so just focusing on like having my voice ring out, and maybe a little shy, actually.
It worked. However you did it, it worked. I'm running out of time. Do you want to play a quick game? Do you like games?
Of course I do.
All right. It's called Lyrical Ponderings. I'm going to give you the title of a song, and the song is in the form of a question. You can either tell me who sang the song, or you can answer the question. Okay. Where is my mind?
Pixies.
You
Yes,
got
so of
it.
course I'm gonna get that.
Not many people have actually got the actual artist. That's right, the Pixies. Where is my
Uh,
mind?
great Boston band.
Well, they're kind of, weren't they from Amherst, like in the middle of the state? Of course, they did tons of shows in Boston. Yeah,
Yes. Um, yeah, maybe not, but I thought that they all kind of met at UMass and they have that song.
yeah, but I think it was UMass Amherst.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But they made a lot of records in
Oh,
Boston.
and influential, hugely influential on '90s alternative and grunge. They basically,
Absolutely.
their influence on the slow, fast, slow tempo just influenced a lot of '90s bands like Nirvana.
Absolutely. Um, Also little twin aside, twin magic there. With Kim and Kelly.
You know, I have not seen them live yet.
I myself have not either, but yeah, they are talk about some incredible musicians. They are really up there.
Absolutely. Well, Nina, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me. And I hope that either if Cokeweed doesn't get back together, I hope you landed another band that hits the charts and I can play all the time on my show.
I don't think that the world has heard the last from me yet. So
Good.
we'll see what shakes out.
And keep
Stay
on
tuned.
doing your research there, making the world a better place.
Yes. I strive to hopefully leave this place a little bit better than the way I found it, both through art and the impactful work I do in the science world.
You are amazing, Nina. Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly.